Hello everybody, this is John Blunt with Seattle's Is Good Woodworks with another certification video. We use the certification videos to train our shop users of our community shop. The planer is a machine that follows the jointer. The jointer creates a flat surface on one face, cannot accurately create a matching flat surface of a given thickness on the opposite face. So when you buy wood, it's not flat. If you're working in a shop environment, the conditions of your product require that your wood be flatter than you can buy it. So you do a little processing after you buy your wood. And this machine will copy the bottom face, the flat face, onto the top face by cutting off the high spots, which usually, because it has a curve this way, means the top is curved like that. And if you run that side down, see that amount of rock you get from the curve? If that goes down, it's going to go through like this, and you will copy the curve back on to the jointed face. Very important to keep track of which side is flat when you send it through the planer. When you put it in the planer, it's going to be picked up by power feed rollers that will drive it through the machine. Underneath the cutter head, the thickness that comes out is precisely what the distance is between this table and the bottom of that cutter head and aperture. That is regulated by raising and lowering the table with this wheel. You can't see the internal mechanisms of the planer because it has this cover. So I'm going to give you a quick sketch to show you the relationship that I just described with a little more clarity. What I'm going to sketch for you is a drawing that shows this machine cut in half and viewing it from here. I'm leaving out a few things like the lift mechanism that raises and lowers the table, but this is the internal geometry of it. As you put your piece of wood in, will come to meet the feed roller, which is heavily spring-loaded. The springs are in the wrong location. They're actually at the ends where you can't see them, but the feed roller rotates this way. It will climb up on top of this piece of wood and pass it through. When this piece of wood meets the cutter, right here, the cutter will start cutting off the top of the piece of wood. And it will come out this thick. The cutter is always higher than the low point of the two feed rollers, otherwise they wouldn't feed it. So you get your piece of wood coming out thinner right here. This feed roller is smooth and it just takes it on out. This has knurl marks on it to help give it a better grip against the cutting force. The knives are always pointed toward you, I guess, on the bottom of the cut inside the machine. So that's how it works. That's the basic geometry, and raising and lowering the table is how you control how thick your wood comes out. Now I want to show you how to make the adjustments and actually operate the machine. It's pretty straightforward. This is the scale that allows you to set the gap and therefore the thickness. The scale on this machine has two scales on it. This is metric. We use the imperial scale here in the shop because everything else is imperial. Users can use this scale, that's fine, but everything else is not going to match. So this indicator and the scale are separated. That means you really do have to have your eye at the right level to get a good read because of parallax. All right, this line right here, your eye level needs to be right with it if you want to get an accurate height setting. If I move up just this much, I'm reading a full 1/16 of an inch difference. That's very important, at least when you make your last cut, which is when you're trying to get your precise thickness. This is how you do the actual setting of the height. We use this mechanism, the wheel, and turning the wheel allows you to raise and lower the table. Lower that, thicker cut. Raise it, thinner cut. There's a lock mechanism to keep it from starting to fall downward. So, step 1, loosen the lock. Step 2, lower it beyond the point of where you want to be, and then pull it back up while checking it according to the instructions I just gave you. Then you lock it. You're ready to put the wood through. The power switch is a kill switch, which means that it won't run if you don't reset it after it's been turned off. The kill switch has a ring on the back of it here. There's a black ring right here. You simply turn it clockwise and it will pop up by itself, and now it is ready to run. And that's simple as that. The dust collection for this machine right here is shared with 2 other machines. The gate for the dust collection is right here. I just closed it. It should be opened. There's another gate for the white belt sander. If it's open, it should be closed. There's one more gate for the table saw over there, and likewise closed if nobody's using it. The switch for the dust collection is right here. It takes a lot of pressure to turn it on. Ready to roll. Power on. So we didn't quite make it with one cut right here. The maximum depth is 1/8. If we see we have the lines remaining, that tells us that we didn't make it all the way on the ends. If we have so much curve that 1/8 isn't going to cut it all the way down here, you make more than one pass. And that's how you do it. You work progressively thinner until you reach the thickness that you planned. This planer will take up to 1/8 of an inch. If you try to set it to take more than 1/8 inch off by raising the table too high, it won't go in here. That barrier is 1/8 inch higher than the cutter head. However, there's a caveat. They've added this right here because they don't want you running a board this wide through there and taking a full 1/8 inch off. That would wipe the machine out. It's got limits. And so if you attempt to put it set high enough, with the table high enough to take an 1/8 inch off, it won't go in. As long as your pieces are all narrow, you can feed some here, back and forth. 1/8 at a pass. Any wider piece, you have to take a 1/16 of an inch each time you pass it through, and no more. You also are not allowed to make cuts with the end grain this way. When this reaches the end, the cutter reaches in, it will tear big chunks off and they'll fly around inside and they can do damage. And you are not allowed to run plywood or solid wood through with the grain running this way. See, this direction, you don't do that. Same reason, it's going to tear big chunks off the back. That's the way logs split so easily, and there's a lot of force. Only solid wood, only running with the grain this way. And in case that's not clear enough by itself, no plywood. You got to grain all directions with this plywood. And that covers it. Once in a while, you're going to find a planer grabs your stock, especially if it's got a little bevel all across it, and turns it on you. And you can fix that. You can just yank it and overcome it. So you don't panic. Just grab it and pull it straight. You can overpower that. I'll demo. We'll pretend it just turned it. there's a wheel with a lever right down there that sometimes people move it and leave that wheel engaged so that if you try to yank it, that will move the whole thing instead. So it's a good idea before you start to check and make sure that the lever is in the right position so the wheel is not what's touching the ground. The frame is touching the ground. Okay, now your wood is to thickness, flat on both sides. You can see the marks are gone, and ready for the next step. That concludes this video, certification video. Thank you very much, and come see us.